Learning a new circuit is one of the most important aspects to racing. Being able to determine how is best to drive a new track is crucial, especially if you only have a short amount of time to learn it before a race. You could also spend 10 hours of practice driving the circuit, but there is a difference between 10 hours of quality practice and 10 hours of needlessly driving around if you don't know what to look for in order to improve your times. So that is what we're going to show you today. Firstly, we'll take you through the steps of what to look for and how to adapt to the new track. Then we'll show you how you can refine your driving by comparing your sessions to other drivers. And we'll round out the video with a summary of our top tips. So let's get started. If this is the type of content that you like to see, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to keep up to date with all our newest videos to help you get faster in sim racing. Before we get on track, it's important to mention a few things first. When you're learning a new track, that alone gives you enough to think about. If you're also having to drive a car you're unfamiliar with, it will undoubtedly make things more difficult. So where possible, you should always choose a car that you're comfortable with so you can focus solely on learning the track. Secondly, you should install the Track Titan app and configure your game, as once you're on the circuit, the app will begin to record your session data in the background. This means that we have insights to our driving that we can analyse whenever we're ready to. You can sign up for 30 days of unlimited use with the code LEARN, but we'll get to that properly later. For now, let's jump on track. Now, these tips will be broadly the same across all games, but the more realistic the sim, the more these tips will matter. For example, games with realistic handling like iRacing, ACC and Assetto Corsa will be less forgiving to mistakes and incorrect driving inputs than more arcadey kind of titles. For this video, we will use Assetto Corsa Competizione. So step 1 is to do some sighting laps. These shouldn't be at full speed initially. You want to focus on getting a feel for the circuit, where the corners go, what the corner approaches are like, and just generally anything you need to pay special attention to. Once you have done a few laps, you should have firstly begun formulating an idea of the ideal racing line. Now, the ideal racing line will vary slightly across different car classes because the more aerodynamic cars open out the corner more than the more mechanical cars, but the essence of it is maximising the radius of the line you take. Keeping your minimum speed as high as possible is the goal, but it isn't always as simple as hitting the entry curb, apex curb and exit curb. If you have a complex of corners or a chicane perhaps, a good rule of thumb is to optimise the line for the slower corner combinations, since you spend more time in slow corners. Whether it means compromising one or multiple corners, your sighting lap should have given you the knowledge of where the corners go, and from that, you can plan on how you can get through those corners at the highest possible speed. You could use the racing line assist in-game, but this will only ever give you a basic line which isn't always optimum, and it's better to learn to rely upon yourself to figure it out. If you're struggling with the racing line, you could always check out one of our videos on mastering that line. We have the basics and one more focused on where you should and shouldn't use the V-shape line. Once you've got a rough idea of your racing line though, the next thing you need to pay attention to is the elevation. This can be an often overlooked feature of tracks when it comes to trying to learn them, because elevation can dramatically change your approach, execution and exit from corners. For example, if there is an uphill approach, you can brake later than you ordinarily would for the same distance as you have gravity aiding you. Similarly, a downhill approach will mean you need to brake earlier. Additionally, elevation makes the car more susceptible to oversteer and understeer. On a downhill approach, the car is more likely to understeer as there is less load on the front tyres, and on an uphill approach, you're likely to experience oversteer due to the same reason. So when you're doing your sighting laps, you should have paid attention to the elevation of the circuit and make note of each of these in case there are any corners you need to pay particular attention to. Now, through a corner itself, there's another type of elevation you need to watch out for, and that is camber. Camber on a track is the horizontal angle of the track. For example, on the Nürburgring Nordschleife, the famous carousel corner is a banked hairpin of sorts, and that bank is cambered. Cambered corners allow the car to take more speed through the corner as the bank forces the car into the road and allows the tyres to have better contact with the road. However, there is also off-cambered turns which does the exact opposite and means you have to take extra care. So during the sighting laps, you should pay attention to if there is any camber which can affect the way you would take the corner. Once you're happy with track elevation, now it's time to pay attention to the curbs. They are not exactly overlooked features of a racetrack, as even us here at Track Titan always talk about whether you should use a curb or avoid it. Now, during your sighting laps, you should have looked at the nature of the curbs. Are they raised? Are they painted? Are they rumble strips or sausage curbs? Each one will be used differently, and it also depends on the car you're driving. Cars with more ground clearance will be more forgiving to raised curbs, but your stiffer, more low-riding race cars, well, let's just say you'll be meeting the competition face to face, quite literally, if you're not careful. One thing that is often overlooked, however, is whether you can use the curbs as additional track width. For example, on corner approach, rumble strip curves will decrease the effectiveness of your braking, as the tyres won't have as good as a contact as if they were on the tarmac. So using these curbs on approach can actually extend your braking zone. Apex curves might be raised. On slower corners, this will be more forgiving, especially in a higher clearance car, but during a fast corner, it could upset the balance of the car and quickly induce a weight transfer that causes you to lose control of the car. Even the exit curbs can affect your tyre's contact with the road and hinder your exit, so on the sighting laps, pay attention to the types of curbs the track has, and if you're able to use them, or if you should avoid them. Now that we've got that out the way, let's move on to braking. We mentioned during the sighting lap section that you want to pay attention to what the corner approaches are like. Most tracks have braking boards on approach to a corner, and this is always a good starting point to figure out where your braking points are. For example, coming into the chase at Mount Panorama in a Porsche 992, I know that I can safely brake at the 150 meter board and make the corner. When you're doing your sighting laps, you want to start thinking about the speed you might be approaching any given corner at, and subsequently, where might be a good place to brake. Of course, from knowing the car in game, you'll have a rough idea of what the braking performance is like, but as you begin to pick up pace, start braking later and later until you find yourself off the track. Find the latest possible point that you feel comfortable braking at and go from there. As you gradually start to pick up speed, your entry speed into the corner will be higher, and you will need to start braking slightly earlier to cover this. From there, you now need to find your reference. A reference can be anything from a braking board, a change in track surface, a trackside object like a tree, a side road, an overhead gantry, or just about anything that fits the bill. Once you have your reference points, this is where you can start to lap consistently. So now we've spoken about each major aspect individually, and you have navigated the basics. It's time to hone in on what you've found. Begin lapping using all the information you have now collected. Keep pushing the boundaries by trying different braking points, different racing lines to find out what works for you. The more laps you do, the more you will understand the circuit and begin to find consistency. How consistent you're able to be will of course depend on how experienced you are. The professional drivers will be able to lap within a tenth or two consistently each lap, whereas a less experienced driver would likely aim for within a second. You should have some idea of your normal level of consistency, so whatever that usually is, find yourself a groove to get to that level within a certain time each lap. If you're unsure if you have been consistent, check out your session overview page on Track Titan to see a list of your lap times, and subsequently you can see how consistent you've managed to get. Finding a rhythm is crucial for the next step, because without it, you won't have a baseline of pace that will enable you to improve. At the start of the video, we said about downloading Track Titan so that you can record your session data. Well, now is the time that comes in handy. You see, in the background, the Track Titan app has been monitoring your performance, recording your lap times, and all of your session data, meaning you can now go in and analyse it in depth. This is the reason you need to find consistency, because if you have a fluke fast lap, you may not understand completely how you did it, whereas once you've found a groove, not only do you understand what you're doing, but you're now in a place where you can take recommendations on how to get quicker, and this is where Track Titan comes in. From here, we can review our data against the Track Titan official lap, which shows us exactly where we are losing time in any given corner. Alternatively, you can also select any other driver from around the world to analyse against, including professional esports drivers if you're feeling particularly competitive. From here, you can start to build an understanding of where additional time may be found, and from there, we can get back on track. If you want to get your own personalised tips and advanced sim racing coaching, we're running a special offer. By signing up to Track Titan with the code LEARN, you can get 30 days of unlimited session insights and recorded laps to get personalised coaching advice on. You can also browse the Track Titan Academy to learn more about any given track or car. Perhaps you fancy analysing F1 drivers' data in the Race Engineer section, or catching up on the latest from around the world of motorsport using the News Engineer feature. Whatever part of motorsport interests you, there's a home for you on Track Titan. So sign up with the code LEARN for 30 days of unlimited use. Now that you've analysed your data and found points you feel you can improve, it's time to get back out on track and try them. This of course will be pushing you from the groove that you've found, so take it one step at a time and don't try to do it all at once. Again, find yourself a rhythm before going back to Track Titan to analyse away. You should keep repeating steps 6 and 7 as many times as you need before you feel you have reached your limit in terms of lap time. Don't forget, the more you drive and the more tracks you drive on, the quicker this whole process will take. So let's just recap on the important points from this. Firstly, sighting laps are crucially important to look out for racing lines, elevation, curbs, braking points and references. From there, you should find a groove which will then provide you a baseline pace that you can take into Track Titan to analyse. From the insights and recommendations, you can jump back onto Track Titan and find even more gains too. It's all about learning to adapt quickly, and the quicker you can learn a new track, the quicker you can learn new ways of getting quicker around it. So don't forget to use the code LEARN for 30 days of unlimited session data insights so that you can learn these tracks quickly. But that's it from us today. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.